Coming to how to design these active safety systems. In India, basically, we refer NBC. NBC, this is on, I am going in depth basics because most of the students are there. NBC is National Building Code. So National Building Code, we are referring currently 2016, but there is a amendment revision that has been coming up in the 2025. It has coming up as a draft copy. Okay, so we refer this NBC. It is a vast volume. National Building Code is a vast volume with about 2,000 to 3,000 pages of information of how we have to construct. Unfortunately, we missed that. Okay, but leaving that aside, coming to NBC, there are two methods provided in our NBC. One is we call it as the something which is associated with tabulated data, or we call it as the prescriptive design method. In this prescriptive design method, the requirement, whatever the system that I told you, that could be there in active system, in the 8 elements that I showed you, for all these 8 elements, there will be a tabulated information for what type of building, what type of extinguishing or maybe active safety system needs to be provided. If he says yes, you have to provide. If he says no, the requirement is no more required. And under these circumstances, so we understand a prescriptive condition. Okay, here we are not going to consider actual scenarios. Here we will not consider your building condition. It is generalized. It is generalized for every building. There are categories. There are different categories of building. Okay, so coming to this NBC approach, how we have to provide this active safety systems. First, we need to categorize the building depending upon the type of occupancies that I have shown in step 1, that is low hazard, moderate, and high. Depending upon the type of hazard condition, your objectives have to be defined. What is your objective in fire hazard condition? Which is the first objective that you need to address. You need to in detail address that. And after that, you need to identify as per the NBC, what system is required for your building or maybe type of occupancy. And this based on the height of the building and size of the building and occupancy that will be there whenever we see occupancy, amount of people. Okay, under these circumstances, it is going to provide amount of sprinklers that are required, amount of extinguishers that has to be added, or amount of hydrant system or the pressurized hydrant system that has to be added needs selected. And there is a small calculation that we have to do. The amount of sprinklers required and amount of water demand that will be there, that as I have added here. Only these calculations, if we do, we can get most of the required active safety system. But is it right? But are we going to safeguard every persons by selecting this? No. We have to adopt performance-based design. We call it as PBD. Okay, what is there in PBD, which was not there in NBC 2016? Previously, it was not there in 2016, but it was highlighted only a small part. Now it has been added in the draft code in the annex. In the annex, they have added what is this performance-based design. There are a lot of elements I have added here. Let us not panic. It is not a fire, but let us understand one by one. So what is this performance-based design? Previously, how we understood the requirement of objective. Here also we will define the objective of buildings. But along with that, we will select the performance criteria. We call that as indicators. How I have to limit the temperature in the stage of 1, that is in the incipient stage. What should be the visibility of my compartment? What should be the amount of amount of carbon that is going to be present in the condition of accidents? And under these conditions, how the fire is going to create massacre to structural elements or maybe a severe damage to structural elements. All these, whatever I told you, these are all indicators. These indicators will analyze. For example, say I'm taking up a mall, mercantile building, okay, for my design. So I will define what are all the objectives. First objective is life safety. I have to safeguard all the people who are there, who have come for shopping or maybe for watching movie. They have to create a facility for safe evacuation. We have to create larger area where they can come out easily and take a shelter. And there has to be means of egress where they are guided. These are all objectives where we have to define. After defining that, we have to create a model. We have to create the model of the building and create all the fire scenarios. This step 3, all the fire scenarios inside, whatever the possible fire scenarios. Under these fire scenarios, what is the temperature fastest that your the heat sensors, or maybe the smoke sensors, or maybe any of the active system is going to capture at what temperature that it should be less than 60 degree, and whatever the visibility that was there during the active system working, or maybe any person who will identify that getting a big fire, it should be 10-meter visibility should be there whenever it is heard that there is a fire. And CO limit, it should be at less toxicant limit. And we have to determine these conditions at all the possible fire scenarios. Okay. And what we have to conduct a detailed evacuation analysis. Under all the fire scenarios, we have to come up with the type of environment where the congestion will not happen. Every people will have their space to take to get out. Okay, these are identified. Suppose if it is not working, then we have to replace any of our system that we have considered to reduce this criteria to control, like sprinklers, detection system, hydrants, smoke control, emergency power. All these conditions are reanalyzed or redesigned such a way that every people are safely evacuated. And after this, we have to get the acceptance from the authority, and documentation has to be made for the construction and provision of active safety system. This is a very small time that I'm giving you, but it is an in-depth concept. It is a very, very, very complicated and in-depth concept which we have to understand. It is a very serious scenarios that we have to analyze during before design and construction stages. Okay, this is about performance based fire safety design for active safety system. For active safety system. Then there is a question, should we have to consider this PBD for my house? Then this PBD should be considered for all of our institutions. That depends. That depends on type of importance, or maybe the type of structure, or it could be any of the critical infrastructure that we are going to build. Then this type of analysis is must. Then the active system has to be provided. Okay, now there is a very good encouragement in our NBC that this has to be accounted, and let us see, there is much more development is going to happen. Very less number of tools are available. Basically, for this to perform, we have very few, handful of tools. It could be CFAST, or it could be FDS system, or some of the systems that are only available for determining structural integrity. So very few research has been done, tools are available, but more amount of opportunity is going to be created since it has been added for greater economy, something like India. Okay, coming to yes, these are all, as of now, NBC is providing the opportunity to add this PBD, but there are NFP 101 or SFP handbook or ISO 23932. These are all some of the codes where greatest guideline, the maximum guidelines are being put up considering this PBD in active system.